the eyes sort of roll up and you giggle and you say to yourself, this is just silly, this is nuts. However, things have changed now. The paradigm has shifted. The multiverse idea, once thought to be so crazy it only belonged on evening night television, has now become the dominant theory in cosmology. It's unavoidable. You cannot avoid the theory of the multiverse.
In 1952, 7 years after a brutal war with the Allies and subsequent occupation by American forces, Japan was once again free. It shifted its economy from military focus to industries like technology and finance. And this new market created tremendous opportunities. And people from all over the world poured into Japan daily, usually coming through Haneda Airport in Tokyo. It was a hot afternoon in July 1954, and the airport was buzzing. These were the days before full body scanners, and travelers back then didn't have to deal with all that nonsense. But they still had to present a passport to airport security and customs agents. A businessman, middle-aged, Caucasian with dark hair and a beard, made his way to the front of the line. He handed over his passport, which was filled with stamps of the countries he'd recently visited. The customs agent looked puzzled. He glanced up at the man, back to the passport, up at the man again, and asked his name. Broderick Janansfer, said the man. Date of birth? The man replied, 11th of September, 88. So far, so good. Then the agent asked, country of birth? The man replied, very casually, I'm from Taured. The customs agent had never heard of a country called Taured, but there are 200 countries in the world, and some of them are smaller than even the smallest states in the U.S. So the agent called a colleague over. The second agent was also confused. He too had never heard of a country called Taured, and neither did the agent's supervisor. Then the customs agent asked, Mr. Janansfer, do you think you could show us on a map where Taured is? Now, Janansfer was getting annoyed, but what's he supposed to do? So he says, of course, and then he's taken to a private room to prove to the officers that he was telling the truth.
And so the multiverse is not just some invention out of the ether. It flows out of an application of quantum mechanics to general relativity. We're not completely there yet with a full solution, but it's why the idea is taken seriously. It's not just an invention.
Broderick Janansfer, the man from Taured, was visibly upset now. The officers brought him a map of Europe, asked him to point out Taured, and without hesitation, he pointed to a small country on the border of France and Spain. Now, this made sense to the customs officers because even though Janansfer was speaking Japanese, he did have a French accent. But the problem wasn't his language, it was his country. The officers told him that he was pointing to the Principality of Andorra.